black people are not the original inhabitants of South Africa, which, in fact, they're realizing that now. When they claimed that they owned all the land, the original inhabitants, of who there are not many left, said, excuse me, we were the original inhabitants, you guys were migrants here as well, which they were. Okay, the original inhabitants of Southern Africa are called...
Black people are not the original inhabitants of South Africa. Hello guys there, my name is Joel Mugisha. Welcome back to the channel. If you're not subscribed, kindly do me a favor, subscribe, like the video, share, drop a comment. And guys, today we go back to South Africa. There is a white man that is claiming black people are not the original inhabitants of South Africa. Really? First of all, where is South Africa located from? In Africa, but let's watch this video and then I'm gonna come back and give my commentary, guys.
Black people are not the original inhabitants of South Africa, which, in fact, they're realizing that now. When they claimed that they owned all the land, the original inhabitants, of who there are not many left, said, excuse me, we were the original inhabitants, you guys were migrants here as well, which they were. Okay, the original inhabitants of Southern Africa are called the Khoisan. In the West, the Bushmen are Khoisan. Hottentots are Khoisan. But you can't use those words anymore. You now have to call them Khoisan. Okay? All right. Now, and they were the inhabitants of the whole of Southern Africa. So the whole of South Africa, at one stage, were Khoisan. The black people originated in what is now Cameroon. That's where they...
Hold on, Khoisan aren't black?
No.
What are they?
They're a completely separate ethnicity all on their own. In fact, if you look at them, they're kind of yellowy. They're a light brown yellow color,
right.
But they look more Asian than African. They do not consider themselves African.
Interesting.
When the white guys arrive in Cape Town, so 1652 is when Dutch guys arrived there. At that stage, you could have divided South Africa almost exactly 50-50, what's now South Africa. The western half of the country was entirely Khoisan. There were no black people there. None at all. Only Khoisan. So we're Cape Towners, all that area, Khoisan people. The northern part of the country did have black people. They'd started arriving, and they were still migrating.
How long have they been there in the northern?
Well, it's a moot point, and people have debated it. It would seem that black people had probably started arriving in the northern parts of South Africa maybe 1,000 years. Something like about 1,000 years before whites got there, right up in the north, okay? And they've been slowly moving south because it's an empty space. I mean, one of the things about Africa is it's very empty. Up until the 1950s, Africa was very empty. It's the population exploded because white colonists, the naughty white colonists, put hospitals there, and there's been this huge population explosion since the 1950s. But Africa was really very empty up until then. And so tribes moved around and just occupied new empty territory. So the guys coming down from the north, who called the Bantus, it's called the Bantu expansions, when black people came out of the Cameroons, they'd been occupying South Africa and moving systematically south, down the east coast
They were
of South Africa.
pastoralists, am I right?
Yeah, they were pastoralists, yeah. Whereas the Khoisan were hunter-gatherers. They were like aboriginals, okay, so they hadn't become pastoralists yet. The black guys are migrating down from the north and settling, doing exactly what white guys are doing. So white guys, the Dutch guys from Cape Town, were settling by moving eastwards. So the white guys are moving from Cape Town eastwards, and the black guys are moving down from the north. And they met at a place called the Fish River, which is now in the middle of South Africa, at a place called, it's still called Border. Everybody in South Africa calls that part of the country the border, even though there's no border there at all anymore. But there was a river called the Fish River, which is where blacks and whites first encountered each other. And then it started 100 years of warfare between whites and the Xhosa, who were the tribe that they met there. And so, okay, so at that point, that would have been in about 1700. So whites and blacks first encountered each other in 1700. Okay, so whites had already been there for 100 years at that. Black people are not the original inhabitants of South Africa, which, in fact, they're realizing that now.
Hello, my friend. This was a common talking point for colonizers in South Africa, in which they tried to legitimize their rule and presence in the region. I'd say to justify South African apartheid by comparing it with some ancient migrations is honestly a poor strategy. The Bantu expansion that you're referring to is understood to have occurred through a series of agricultural migrations. These Bantu migrations are believed to have begun 5,000 years ago, reaching South Africa close to 2,000 years ago. There isn't strong evidence to suggest that they wiped out or completely replaced the pre-existing populations like I believe you implied, though of course it's likely that their presence in fertile areas pushed Khoisan people out to less fertile areas. Now, in my opinion, this doesn't compare to a conquest or a form of colonialism that shares the characteristics of the actual colonial rule endured by the country. Next, as Bantu-speaking populations have lived in southern Africa for many centuries, they do have some genetic ancestry from groups considered indigenous to this area as well. This is because the Bantu expansion wasn't simply a population replacement, but instead genetic studies suggest that pre-existing populations did assimilate and mix with the Bantu migrants. This whole argument you presented is sort of like telling an Indian that British colonialism is justified because part of their Indian ancestry is derived from Neolithic populations that existed outside the colonial borders of the subcontinent. It makes little sense.
There you have it, guys. You had that audacious claim from this palm-colored man that black people are not original to South Africa. But first of all, let me ask you a question. Where is South Africa located? In Africa, right? South Africa, even the name is derived from southern part of Africa, because South Africa is at the bottom, at the tip of the southern part of the African continent. Now, this palm-colored man is actually claiming that black people are not original to South Africa. And he's also claiming that the Khoisan people are not actually African, they are Asians, because of their distinct facial features that resemble actually Asian people. But I have to say that he tends actually to ignore a fact that Africa is scientifically proven to be the most diverse continent on the planet. You know, an African man from Cameroon and another African man from Angola, they are genetically different more than anybody on the planet, because Africa is genetically diverse. You can find that we have the Bantu people, we have the Nilote people, we have the Kushites, and we have these the Khoisan people. So Africa is a blend of everything, and our genetic makeup is actually very diverse, more than any other race on the planet. Anybody from Cameroon and someone else from Nigeria or even Angola, or someone from West Africa, another person from East Africa, we are way more genetically different than taking someone from, you know, maybe a country in Poland, in Europe like Poland, and another person from maybe France. You know, Africa is a genetically diverse continent. So claiming that the Khoisan people are not African is actually an outrageous claim, because they are Africans. They never came from anywhere. The Khoisan people never came from Asia, actually. They never came from anywhere. They are original from Africa. And also claiming that black people are not original to South Africa, it's a bold claim, it's an outrageous claim, because of the fact that the Khoisan people seem to be lighter in skin, and also their facial feature seem to be more, you know, resembling to Asian people. So you claim that black people are not original to South Africa. That is an outrageous claim that wants to make sure that, you know, the black people from South Africa, he was actually saying and claiming that they came from Cameroon and they were doing what white people were doing, you know. But even though, let's just say they came from Cameroon, they never came from a different continent, and Africa then never had anything like borders. There was nothing like Cameroon back then. All these things that you see, Cameroon, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Namibia, all this is a result of the Berlin Conference in 1884, when white people actually sat in Berlin, Germany, and divided up Africa so that they could better exploit our resources. So that is nothing. There was nothing like Cameroon. Africa was just one place. People moved freely from anywhere in Africa, you know, and these people are indigenous to Africa. They are African. The Khoi people and the San people, they are all African. You cannot claim that they are not African just because they look different and they have a lighter skin. The same way someone from East Africa doesn't necessarily look like someone from West Africa because of the genetic diversity of Africa. So guys, you saw there, he was trying to claim that black people are not original to South Africa. This is an outrageous thing to claim, and he's actually trying to validate what, palm colored people are doing, invading South Africa. South Africa was colonized first by the Dutch and then by the British, and then he's trying to validate that by claiming that the black South Africans, now them that he calls black, are the ones that look, darker skinned and not like the Khoisan people, came from a region where today is known as Cameroon, as the Bantu people. And then he was trying to validate that they did the same thing as the palm colored people were doing, invading South Africa. So this is the same continent, and that is an outrageous to claim that South Africans of today, the black people in South Africans, they are not original to South Africa. They don't belong in South Africa. That is outrageous, actually. You cannot tell me that all the Zulus and all the tribes in South Africa, they are not original to South Africa. So guys, what do you think about that claim that black people are not original to South Africa? Let me know in the comment section. And also, if you're not subscribe guys, like the video, drop a comment, share, let me know guys, and as always, see you on the next episode.